So, for those of you who may not heard, Olivia and I recently returned from South Korea, and we wanted to briefly share our experience and also our testimony. Mid 2024, I was presented with the opportunity to travel to South Korea as an English teacher to minister and teach English to students in South Korea. We went through an organization called Footsteps Missions. Footsteps Mission is an online organization that gathers volunteers across the world to serve in Honduras and in South Korea. Both locations work together to uplift children in different ways. In our case, we served two churches in South Korea who held English camps. The money that they raised for these camps was donated to the orphanages in Honduras. And that is how Footsteps kind of tag teams for both locations for the honor and glory of God. I mentioned how in 2024 I was presented with the opportunity to go to South Korea. Obviously, I did not go last year as the timing did not align with my school schedule and financially. I had always wanted to visit South Korea and go on an international mission trip, but I had no idea that God would align the timeline to visit South Korea on a mission trip. In 2024, I attended all the Zoom meetings to go on this trip, but it never really happened. It never aligned. And I actually, at the time, I didn't know it, but I met two other members from our summer team who also didn't end up going last year. God ended up aligning the timelines for us to meet in the summer of 2025. Prior to the trip, one of my biggest deciding factors, I prayed that God would send someone to come with me. As I asked around last year and even early this year, I got many no's, and I slowly began to give up on that prayer until one day we were at the zoo with the young adults, and I asked, hey, who wants to go to South Korea with me? And Olivia.
So, the reason why kind of, I said yes, I guess, so impulsively is because prior the Christian Challenge had went to Voice of the Martyrs, and it kind of spiked like a passion for me for like missions, and especially like abroad. And so at first it wasn't in my cards at all, and then my sister was saying that they needed someone to step up and take place of someone else on a one-link trip to Burma. And so I was like, you know what, I'll do it and I'll just be obedient. And so I basically convinced myself and set aside everything, all of the reasons why I shouldn't. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then for some reason, that trip fell through and they couldn't continue anymore. And so whenever Alondra asked me, I was like, you know what, why not? Like maybe it was set up perfectly that the Burma trip didn't work out, and so I can go with Alondra. And so that's kind of what led up to me saying yes to going to the trip.
And so, when we were raising funds for South Korea, it seemed like a really far away goal. Given that we registered in March of this year and the funds were due 2 months, and it was about, I think, 3,000 for each of us. So it just seemed impossible. But thankfully, we were able to raise every penny we needed, and we were even overly blessed. God's timing in that providing funds for the both of us before the deadline was just confirmation that we both were meant to go together.
And I just wanted to say thank you for all of you guys, because you guys are the reason why we were able to fund it. So that was all I was going to say.
So, being in South Korea, God brought a team together from all over the US and even a volunteer from South Africa. Our group felt like such an unlikely team as we were all in different stages of life, and but God used us in different ways to minister to these children in South Korea. So in South Korea, the children actually face a lot of educational pressure. Their academics is their identity, and their schedules are insane. So they do regular school hours from 8 a.m. to about 3 p.m., and then they go home, eat dinner, and then they still attend what they call a hagwon, which is known as night school. So, and they attend these night schools until about 8 to 9 p.m. And so they are in a very competitive and they face a lot of pressure with the education system. They're failing in school for them over there at such a young age. Elementary school students, especially, is like failing in life for them. And we got to see how their academics, they put that as their identity. And so our mission was not only to teach them teach them the way they do here in America, but also to show them that their identity is not in their academics, that their identity is in a God who views them as treasure and as his friend. And so God's timing in sending us to Korea, preparing these classes the first few days, and even adjusting to the culture was a lot. But God had a plan while we were there. We also faced some pretty unfortunate events while we were there. But let me tell you how God was in these events. So, we actually got lost in South Korea. We were on the bus stop, and when we got off, my phone beat me to the next bus stop. So my phone was left on the bus, and it left me. And so, um, as soon as we, uh, as soon as I realized I didn't have my phone on me, Olivia was like, "Let's pray right now." And we were in the middle of the street in South Korea, and we prayed, and we're like, "God, please help me find this phone. Help me not be stressed." 30 minutes later, with the help of the congregation and people in South Korea, we were able to find my phone. So they located it, but we didn't have it in my possession yet. It was at a bus station. And so getting to the phone was where it was going to end up being frustrating for us. We had limited navigation, obviously limited with the language there, and we ended up having a very frustrating late evening in Seoul, and we were lost. But we ended up meeting two friendly strangers who decided to put their life on pause just to help us find out where we were going, because apparently we were going in the opposite direction of where we needed to be. So unfortunately, those strangers were not able to get us to the destination, but when we met the second stranger, they left us with a "God bless you," which is really rare to say in South Korea to someone when you're saying bye. And just also, it felt like a confirmation that God was with us during that stressful time. And then we had another unfortunate event where Olivia ended up falling on the very last day that we were there. And she injured her ankle, but just God's timing throughout the entire situation was so clear. We happened to be 5 minutes away from our hotel and 2 minutes away from the orthopedic clinic. Um, it also just so happened that someone passing by happened to speak English, and so they were also able to help us in that situation.
Yeah, so I fell. I don't have a cool story. I just fell. That was really um, but whenever the ambulance came and they were asking if I wanted to be transported, I was like, in America it's really expensive to get transported. So I was like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to if I don't have to. And they were like, well, we could just wheel you, it's right there. And I was like, oh. And so they stuck me in a wheelchair and rolled me down the street. And yeah, and it was like what she said, an orthopedic hospital. So it's specialized with what I needed. And so um, whenever I got in there, I was like pretty frustrated, obviously, a little in pain. Everybody was freaking out because they couldn't speak English, and we were trying to get translators on the phone and all that mess. And while I was there, the staff was just so comforting. They were just like, oh no, it's okay, you're okay. And like, just very comforting through it all. And then obviously the timing of just finding like someone who spoke English that could call for us, because there, here, like you don't even need a SIM card to call 911, and there you have to have a Korean SIM card to call 911, and so we couldn't just call, and so someone else had to call for us and all that, and just the timing worked out perfectly, and God really provided financially too. It was like $100 for all of it. And it was like crazy because here it would not have been like that. But I think God really just blessed me. And then even when I came back home, like I was in a boot, which was unfortunate, but it was nothing crazy. Like I'm healing, I'm still walking. um, and so yeah, I think God's timing, like it was the last second to last day of us leaving, so I didn't have to teach the kids in a boot. And he just really provided. And even though it was a trial, I think we both were able to see God's hand in it through the whole thing. So
And then on our flight home, we were hopeful that no one else would sit to us in the two seats next to us, but the plane that we boarded ended up not having a single empty seat. A kind woman and her son, however, ended up booking flights, I think, the night before because we were kind of keeping a lookout. And um, their destination was Manhattan, Kansas. So there was a lot closer to home. So before we took off, this woman wondered where we went to visit in Korea, and we just spoke of the tourist spots that we had gone there. We hadn't really mentioned that where we're coming back from home from a mission trip. But anyway, so we kind of put a pin in that conversation. And then 15 hours on the flight, that woman ended up spending most of her time reading her Bible and obviously sleeping. Once we landed on American soil and we began parting ways, she handed Olivia and I a card, and in it we would find scripture written inside, once again reminding us of God's presence and the hand that He had over us up until the very last minute of this trip.
yeah, so this is actually the second letter that we received this trip. So our other teammate from South Africa, his name was Taviso. He also wrote the whole team like personalized letters. And so they recommended that we don't read it now, even though me and Alondra were like, I want to open it. They were like, don't read it now. Just wait till you're at home, until it's like settling in. And so I did that with both letters. And so as you guys know, I had just gotten married, just moved. I didn't have a job because I just left my job. And I was like, okay, what am I doing in life? And so I just sat down during a Bible study and I opened both of the letters. And the letter from our teammate, Mr. T, or Taviso, his letter was about how God blesses the work of my hands. And the whole letter was just about whatever work you step into, God's with you. Work, you're blessed. And that was the whole letter. And I was like, well, now I feel very relieved about not having a job right now. And then I opened, I don't even remember her name, whoever gave us the letter on the airplane, and it was Proverbs 31. And she just gave me an outline of like a godly wife. And I was like, it's like God's just saying, like, I have a question, he just answers it. And I was like, so I think like God's timing with the letters, and just whenever I opened it, it's like exactly when I needed it, and God told him exactly what I needed to hear. And so I just think God's timing was very evident through this entire trip, and even weeks after the trip ended, he was still there with us. So I just think that was really cool.
And so one of our just biggest takeaways throughout this entire trip was just God's timing and His hand in all of it, and how He aligns us for His plan and His will.